Going on, everyone? John Matrix here. Hope you're all having yourselves a wonderful day. We're going to be jumping into the SCP universe here today with the Exploring series as we check out SCP-2408 Oroks Fall. This has been a video that was requested by one of my YouTube members, so looking forward to jumping in and checking it out and seeing what kind of shenanigans we get in here today with this video. So yeah, links will be down below as always in the description to the original video without my commentary and reaction, and to the Exploring series channel. Please do me a favor, if you enjoy this video as we go through it, go over there and give it a like. And if you enjoy the content that the Exploring series puts out on his channel, please do me a favor and go over there and hit the sub button on his channel. He puts out a lot of great content for the 40K universe, for the SCP universe. I think he does stuff for Lord of the Rings, and some others. So check out his content, see if you enjoy it, show him some love. So yeah, just jump into the video here. Boop, boop. Again, Exploring series SCP-2408 Oroks Fall.
SCP-2408 Oroks Fall. Criminals come in many different forms, from the lowly mugger to sophisticated hackers to the leaders of drug empires.
I don't remember if it was mentioned in the Bone Orchard or not. Might have been, though.
The Foundation doesn't usually involve itself in policing criminals, unless, of course, those criminals become involved with anomalies,
right,
whether on purpose or on accident. The SCP we'll be discussing today concerns a large criminal organization in Russia, one that's dark, even by Russian criminal organization standards. While they do enough bad things without even looking at their anomalous elements, the Foundation is interested for one specific reason: their connection to Sarkicism, an anomalous religion devoted to the transfiguration of the human form. SCP-2408 is the designation for several anomalies associated with the group known as the Hunter's Black Lodge, a criminal organization and Sarkic cult primarily active in the post-Soviet states.
It's interesting how many, like, sub-factions there are of a lot of these different things. You know, like, there's a ton of different kind of sub-factions and groups related to Sarkicism, as well as different sub-factions and religious sects related to the Church of the Broken God, or Mechanites, whatever you want to say. And like, I love it, dude. It just fleshes out a lot of the universe even more.
The first type of anomalies involved are genetically normal humans, capable of physically transforming themselves. These transformations can include increasing their mass, primarily in the form of muscle, by 2 or 3 times, increasing their bone density, increasing their testosterone and adrenaline production by massive amounts, increasing the size of their organs in proportional amounts, and increasing the size of their testes and adrenal glands to well beyond proportional sizes, although their brain does not appear to change in size. They can manifest various non-human traits, such as wolf, bear, deer, or octopus features, can shift between bipedal and quadrupedal movement, amplify their...
Well, and that's what I'm saying, too. Like, it makes sense, right? It makes sense that there would be so many different sub-factions and interpretations of these different religions and how they, you know, worship these, you know, Yaldabaoth and Meccan, and even some of the demigods of them, etc. Which, that I don't think they've really talked a lot about. Like, I know there are kind of demigods from Meccan, but they haven't really talked a lot about them, right? Like, there was one video that talked about a woman who was like birthed out of something with a bunch of chains and stuff like that. I haven't really seen her mention anything else further, but there have been a lot of mentions of kind of demigodish characters and Sarkicism, that some even like worship as the main god of Sarkicism, you know, now. So, but I mean, yeah, it makes it more interesting and fleshes stuff out more. Again, I've said this a lot of times in a lot of different videos. I would love to see someone like really make, you know, kind of a fleshed out story arc of the war between the Mechanites and the Sarkics and even the Davites that goes through with a lot of these different characters and heroes from all the different factions and perspectives, and the different battles and things that happened and how that affected the world, and alliances with different factions and stuff. I don't know. I just think it would be fascinating. I think it would be fascinating. I know it doesn't necessarily fit the SCP universe because the SCP universe is more kind of I guess like individual short story, science fiction, horror kind of tales. Although there are some more, overarching connected universes like the Cactus Verse, etc. Admonition. But I don't know. I just think it would be fascinating. I would love to see it. So
senses beyond human limits.
Okay, cool.
And of course, amplify their strength, speed, and regenerative abilities. They are able to perform these transformations within 10 to 30 seconds, and can reverse the changes while maintaining cellular stability. Essentially, they are Sarkic Hulks.
That's kind of terrifying.
These creatures, along with the other anomalies we'll get to, were discovered during Operation Falconwrath, an infiltration by Foundation agents into the Hunter's Black Lodge. The Black Lodge had been linked to extortion, murder, robbery, gambling, prostitution, human, drug, and weapons trafficking, and underground fighting rings. While that all sounds like pretty normal stuff for a criminal organization, the specifics of how they practiced those activities were as abnormal due to their Sarkic nature. One of the drugs they trafficked and distributed was an anomalous anabolic androgenic steroid they titled Wrath, which triggers anomalous levels of muscle and bone growth in subjects when injected. Continued or excessive use of the drug will result in Proteus-Cronenberg syndrome and/or death. Proteus-Cronenberg syndrome seems to be similar to the transformations that the creatures are capable of, except it's non-reversible.
Interesting.
Analysis suggests that the Wrath drug is harvested from the adrenal gland of an unidentified species of animal. They also traffic and distribute a drug titled Lust, which, when snorted...
It's interesting. It made me... I forget what the name of the movie is. It was a movie that came out kind of in the early mid-90s. I think it was even like an HBO like production and movie that was on there. But the premise of the movie was about I guess this kind of like elite mercenary fighting force, and they essentially were like werewolves, and they would like juice up on this like essentially steroid kind of thing. And the steroid was basically like excreted or extractions of like adrenaline or something like that from a full-blooded werewolf, and so it'd make them like werewolf hybrids. I don't know, it just made me think about that. So I wonder if the person that kind of wrote this and came up with that idea, like I thought about it, like I'd seen that movie and kind of like took some inspiration from that. I don't know.
Snorted triggers various sensory hallucinations, increased heart palpitations, increased sexual arousal, and feelings of euphoria, with studies showing it to be more addictive than heroin. It's growing increasingly prevalent across the world as a club drug, having been found in North America, Europe, and Southeast Asia. And while nothing about its effects is specifically anomalous, it seems to have been derived from the spinal fluid of an unidentified species. Victims of the criminal organization have been found impaled on large organic spines containing human DNA, or completely torn apart. Their injuries are suggestive of attacks from several different animals, such as bloody hoof prints, wounds consistent with goring by a horned or tusked animal, and teeth marks indicative of a large wolf-like creature. If that weren't enough, of course, they also distribute a number of dangerous biological agents, chief among them being the Red Death, also known to us as SCP-610,
Right.
the flesh that hates. The Foundation became aware of the Black Lodge after the dissolution of the USSR, thanks to information from GRU Division P. Division P were never able to fully contain or neutralize the Black Lodge, with one source describing the destruction of the group on several different occasions, only for it to reappear months later, stronger than before.
Interesting.
Division P documentation suggests that the Black Lodge's headquarters is located in Moscow, at a location referred to as the Old Altar. They gleaned this information from a man named Ankudinov, who was a victim of some sort of ritual, losing his jawbone in the process, along with suffering severe psychological trauma. He was recovered from Moscow's sewage systems and interviewed by Division P before being executed for criminal involvement, once his survival was deemed no longer necessary. He's asked where the Old Altar is located, but he doesn't know, as he was blindfolded, suggesting only that it's underground. He describes the interior as an old temple with black stones.
You know, I wonder if this is connected to... I don't remember what video exactly it was. I think it was a video that was a tale about SCP-610, or at least had it was involved in it. But I remember there being a story about an MTF or something like that going down through these tunnels in Siberia and seeing like some kind of underground temple with like people laid out in a certain kind of ritualistic way, and these like red flesh beings were with like lanterns would like came out, and it's kind of like I'm vaguely remembering that. I'm wondering if this is referencing some of that, talking about it was the actual six. That's what I thought. That's what I thought. So it might be the Vorhole. It might. I don't remember. But so yeah, I'm wondering if that's what a lot of this stuff is referencing. If it's connected to that, because it sounds somewhat of what they're talking about. Yeah, that was very long. That was one of the first videos I think we did.
The smell of blood and meat, and the sounds of chanting and drumming. He was forced to fight in some sort of gladiatorial combat for the glory of the hunt, and someone or something known as Orok. He escaped among the corpses that were tossed into the sewer system, but he says that he was weak and worthless, and if he were stronger, he would have been culled with honor. The Foundation decided to send in a single MTF agent to infiltrate the organization, a member of MTF Psi-13, Witch Hunters. Psi-13 is a highly classified joint Foundation GOC task force created as part of Project Citra Akra. You may remember Citra Akra from SCP-2408, an unfinished ritual, a project initiated to combat the rising invasion of Sarkic entities into baseline reality.
Okay. We're getting connections from everywhere, which... That also, the Unfinished Ritual, was probably one of my favorite SCP tales. I really like that one. So,
part of the project, Psi-13 operatives are trained in counter-occult stratagems and equipped with a modified Sig Sauer pistol utilizing incendiary and corrosive ammunition.
So these guys are James Bonds that just have, ammunition specifically for Sarkics. Okay.
The agent began operating in Moscow as a
Actually, I think I'm thinking of the wrong pistol. Forget I said anything about that.
Contract killer under an alias, eventually developing a criminal reputation and gaining the attention of the Black Lodge. They contacted him and instructed him to visit a popular nightclub known as Red Lanterns, a Black Lodge front involved in forced prostitution, human trafficking, and the distribution of illegal and frequently anomalous narcotics. The agent was not equipped with a wire, but instead utilized a dead drop involving leaving a message written in security ink inside of an empty bottle placed into a waste container outside of his apartment complex, which was then retrieved by another agent masquerading as a homeless local, photographed and then destroyed. He was observed entering the nightclub at 9:00 p.m., is soon escorted upstairs to a VIP suite, and is not seen exiting the nightclub until 4 days later. He later leaves a dead drop message explaining what exactly happened. He was brought to a circular table where 6 men and 1 elderly woman were seated, with the leader of the Black Lodge, a man named Otari Yosawa, sitting at the far end. The agent describes him as having a menacing air to him, muscular, never smiling or removing his sunglasses. Yosawa skipped the pleasantries, instead remarking on how nice it was to see someone who didn't mind doing a bit of wet work, a euphemism for assassinations.
Yeah.
He also noted that the agent was not working with any of the criminal elements in Russia, and how rare and dangerous it is to work solo in Moscow. The agent said that he had received a few offers, but told them in not so polite terms that they weren't worth his time.
Damn.
Yosawa wasn't impressed by the agent's bravado, suggesting that maybe his luck is about to run out. The agent says that Yosawa was hard to read, with his tone and body language being firm but hardly aggressive. He told him that the other gangs were weak, and
man rolled low on his inside check.
He didn't need to try his luck with the lowest cards in the deck. At this point, the elderly woman, who the agent remarks was noticeably pale and covered with unusual tattoos, leaned over and whispered in Yosawa's ear. Yosawa then refers to the agent with a Russian word literally meaning cow, but is used in the Russian Gulag system to refer to someone that is purposefully brought along during a prison break, specifically to be eaten afterwards in order to survive in the Siberian wilderness.
Yikes.
The usage of the word stuck out to the agent, as it's not really a great thing to be referred to.
No kidding.
Yosawa tells him that he's being given a single chance to prove himself in the way of an initiation, but for now they'll drink and be merry. A bottle of vodka is brought out, the agent pours himself a glass, and the group drank. The agent believes there might have been some sort of tranquilizer in the bottom of his glass, as he blacked out and found himself tied up and naked on the floor, gagged.
Yeah, like in those situations, man, like, I don't know, dude. If you're a spy and you're like in those kind of situations, I'm not accepting any kind of food or drink or anything that I have not made myself, brother. Sorry.
With a hood over his head. They eventually came for him and carted him off for a long time, perhaps an hour or two. He recalls hearing the sound of old pipes and flowing water, the air chilly and damp, and the scent of rust and earth. There were also voices, not all of which were speaking Russian, instead speaking in some sort of Sarkic language.
Makes sense.
They eventually chained him by the neck to a pillar of some kind, untied the ropes, and pulled...
Bro, they're in the mines of Moria here. The Balrog's about to come out, you guys. You better hurry up. Get out. Fly, you fools.
Pulled off his hood and gag. He found himself in a dimly lit area resembling an amphitheater, which seemed to be fairly ancient. There were 4 other men in similar positions to him, along with a large crowd, numbering in the hundreds, observing from the stands. Some of the audience were wearing red and white robes. Others were dressed in plain clothes or business attire. He was injected with something, and everything afterwards was a blur. He recalls hearing chanting, skulls being cracked, eyes being gouged, and the feel of flesh between his teeth.
Yikes.
Then came a celebration of drugs, food, women, and flashes of violence, but all of his memories of the event are vague and disjointed.
So he was drugged, brought to some place where it sounds like they force-fed, like it sounds like he heard people being ritually killed in some way, and then he was force-fed their remains. And so it's like, again, they had mentioned earlier something about going through a ritual with the hunt. So I'm assuming like they're force feeding him the remains of people for whatever this creature is to hunt him down. You know, I don't know. Almost like yeah, exactly. Sarkic Coliseum.
He awoke in his apartment with his skin still caked in blood, and a tattoo on his body resembling a black cyclops skull with horns and tusks. It seems that he's been accepted into the Black Lodge.
Interesting. Okay.
His
Well,
first job involved weapons trafficking.
I mean, you would think when you're initiating members that you would want them conscious of the initiation process, right? Like, I don't know. 'Cause it doesn't seem like anything with that initiation ritual was voluntary. You know what I mean? Love going to my own local underground gladiator match after my 9 to 5. Exactly, Fuse.
For a firearms company long suspected of having Sarkic ties. The agent says that the Black Lodge is a lot like any other Russian crime syndicate, being filled with thugs motivated mostly by greed. But he also says that they're nastier than any other syndicate, which says quite a bit. Within the
yeah, I mean, if you're saying that a crime syndicate in Russia is nastier than any of the other Russian crime syndicates, that is definitely saying something.
Hierarchy are 12 Great Mothers, believed to be Volutar, high-ranking Sarkic cultists.
Yeah, maybe. It could be, yeah. It could be that he got given the Hulk drug and just doesn't remember, right? It was like a haze. So he wasn't necessarily force-fed, but that's just kind of what, like, he remembers. Like, that's how he remembers it.
Advisors to a Karcist, essentially a form of high priest. The enforcers in the Black Lodge refer to them as hags, crones, and witches, although never to their faces. The Great Mothers refer to each other as sisters, and all wear the same black peasant outfit with plenty of tattoos.
Interesting.
The agent says that the term criminal underground has a very literal meaning for the Black Lodge, as there are plenty of abandoned bunkers, forgotten crypts, and metro tunnels underneath Moscow. There's also something far more ancient underneath, and he believes that Moscow was built atop a Sarkic temple. He talks of a dungeon containing rusted torture equipment, definitely from before the Russian Revolution in the early 1900s, and possibly from the time of Troubles in the early 1600s.
Wow.
The Foundation looked further into the Red Lanterns nightclub, finding evidence that a church, presumably Russian Orthodox, once existed at the same place.
Well, like, so from what I understand, right, and maybe I'm wrong, so like everyone in the comments or you guys can chat can correct me, but like way back in the ancient times, like what would be modern day Russia, and I think down through a lot of Asian countries on that part of the world, that was ruled by the Davites way back when, right? And so I think a lot of that territory got taken over by the Sarkics once they left. So that would make sense that a lot of potential Sarkic temples and things that have, you know, would be there underground.
The agent has been fortunate in gleaming some information from one of the Great Mothers, whom he refers to as Five. Five is apparently going senile and is gentle, friendly, and naive, traits not normally associated with Sarkites.
Right.
According to Five, the Black Lodge began in the gulags of Siberia, like many other crime syndicates, during the time period known as the Bitch Wars.
But I mean, that'd be crazy to think about, right? Like if 610 was literally like spread throughout the entirety of like Moscow and a lot of other Russian cities and territories, just like waiting to pop out and do whatever. That'd be pretty crazy.
During this time, between 1945 and 1953, Joseph Stalin made an offer to many prisoners, granting them pardons or a reduction of their prison term if they agreed to serve in the Russian military during World War II. After the war ended,
pretty much a death
many of those that
anyway.
had agreed were sent back to the prisons, but were now on the bottom rung of the prisoner hierarchy due to collaborating with the government. In order to survive, many of them continued to collaborate with prison officials, leading to an internal prison war, with prison authorities turning a blind eye. The survivors of this war would end up forming the modern Russian mafia. Yosava's father had escaped from the Gulag in 1951 and had been responsible for the resurrection of the Black Lodge, an old organization that had apparently become defunct at some point. He had encountered something in the Siberian wilderness, which in turn led the Great Mothers to seek him out and show him what he had forgotten, although the agent couldn't get clarification on what that meant. Five seemed happy to be able to share this information and feel nostalgic about the old ways. She ended up handing him some old notes that she had taken based on Sarkic scriptures, which the agent transcribes for the Foundation. Five claims that Moscow was originally known as Oroks Fall and was a Sarkic settlement.
Okay.
Here, Orok, the saint of war, sacrificed himself for the blood of gods and tyrants. While describing the settlement, she referred to different locations as the heart, lungs, and skull.
Interesting.
In the next message, the agent requests to have his name as well as what he's done removed from the final report, as well as the immediate application of amnestics after the mission is over.
So where Moscow is used to be a Sarkic city called Oroks Fall that was dedicated to essentially the Sarkic god of war, who sacrificed himself in some kind of ritual, and it sounds like several of his organs were separated and are Sarkic relics that have probably been spread to different cities in that region.
Most of his targets so far have been degenerates and criminals, but this time he was sent after the family of a government official that was seeking to crack down on the Black Lodge. He was told to make...
And obviously it sounds like, the Black Lodge and other Russian mafia elements are actually tied in with Sarkics. They're actually, that sounds like they might actually be some kind of different divisions or religion connected to some other kinds of various religions to Sarkicism.
Make an example of his wife and daughter, not to kill them, but to leave scars that will never heal. The rest of the message is expunged. He later spoke again with Five about Sarkicism, making sure not to call it that, as Sarkites refer to their religion as Nalka, a word meaning hunger. She speaks of...
That's pretty fascinating, right? Because, like, Yaldabaoth is kind of like the god of, like, primal instinct. And, like, what's more of a primal instinct than the need to feed, right? So, the fact that they refer to their religion as, like, a word that is, hunger, a word that means hunger, I find that pretty fascinating.
Grand Karcist Ion in a whimsical manner.
Which that, I mean, could also have a ton of different meanings too, right? Their hunger for faith, the hunger for the need to be further connected to their god, that could have a lot of different meanings. So that is pretty fascinating.
She speaks of Grand Karcist Ion in a whimsical manner, skipping over the parts that involve glorified torture and murder.
And isn't Grand Karcist Ion, isn't he like one of the demigods, right? That they worship, and some sects even worship him as like the god of Sarkicism? Or am I mistaken? Am I misremembering things?
She speaks about the early days of Sarkicism, about honor, friendship, virtue, and liberation as they fought against the evil Deva. The agent believes that Sarkicism changed long before she came around, and perhaps she's just begun to interpret the religious texts differently, speaking with a tone of regret. Maybe she's wrong, trying to see the good under layers of madness and atrocity. But either way, the agent suspects that Five is an aberration among the Great Mothers.
Right, and don't certain sects worship him as like the god of Sarkicism now, as opposed to Yaldabaoth? Right? Like, isn't if I'm remembering correctly, isn't it kind of like more of like the nobles and the people connected with higher society worship him because he kind of stands more for like greed and self-preservation and like advancement and strength of the South by any means necessary kind of a situation, right? Isn't it something like that, if I'm remembering correctly? Yeah, that's about right. Some say they found their god, and others say they killed the god and took their strength. Right.
He wonders if perhaps she knows who he actually is. He also discusses the initiation rite that he went through, which occurs in an arena.
Oh.
It's blood sport disguised as a ritual, or a ritual disguised as blood sport, involving 6 combatants. Many come to watch and bet on the match, a number wearing animal skulls and the clean suits of billionaires. Apparently 5 is not a fan, along with the other Great Mothers, who are more traditional proto-Sarkites compared to the modern neo-Sarkites in the rest of the Black Lodge.
That's what it was. That's what it was. There was the proto-Sarkics and the neo-Sarkics. And the neo-Sarkics are the ones that worship Ion or Aeon, whatever his name is, etc. That's pretty interesting.
The agent is later assigned to work the torture dungeon, something they refer to as the basement's basement. Torture is performed in an attempt to gather information, examples are made, organs are harvested, and sometimes it's done just to satisfy Yosava's sadism.
You know, to me, like, just a random thought that I don't know, it's not necessarily random, but just a tangent that my brain's going on as we go through here. Like, originally to me, like from what I know now, like, Sarkicism has almost kind of like, I don't know how... I guess it has almost it has a negative connotation overall, and it almost has kind of like it almost feels like demonic in certain ways. Like it feels very similar to how like chaos demons, you know, from the warp feel, like these weird mutations of nature that like are driven by base instincts, right? But I feel like there might also be kind of like an aspect of Yaldabaoth that is essentially kind of like Mother Nature, right? Like just, you know, everything in that kind of, I don't know how I want to word it. Not necessarily primordial, but maybe that's a way of doing it. But just like the idea of like the hunter and the hunted, and the idea of like, I guess, a connection to like nature, I guess. I don't know. It's not, I'm not expressing what I'm trying to, what I'm thinking of very well. It's not just necessarily like a connection to nature, but I guess like the connection of that instinct and need to like hunt, you know, like I don't know. I don't know how to express where I'm trying to go with this, but yeah. Anyway, I guess let's just continue, because I'm not elaborating very well on what my thought process is. But anyway, let's continue.
There's one cell in the dungeon that's different, though, containing a heavy door with a small slit to peer through and another for food. Inside, the agent saw a man with no eyes and nose, instead with just a gaping hole in his face.
That sounds very Hanged Kingish.
It reminded him of a cyclops and the tattoo they put on him, so perhaps they're connected. The man was sitting on the floor with chain-linked hooks holding his body completely in place. The agent thought he was dead at first.
It still sounds very Hank Kingish.
The heavy breathing and the slow movements of his chest. He later learns from 5 that that's actually Yosava's half-brother Mikhail. Apparently, the two have somewhat of a rivalry, but 5 was vehement that the rivalry is not why Mikhail is in the cell. It seems that he instead volunteered to do it as part of some sort of ritual. Beyond that, things are getting pretty strange for the agent, who has begun to hallucinate, or not. The angles in the nightclub and below are becoming wrong, giving him a headache if he stares at them for too long. Yesterday, he woke up in a bathroom stall with a half-eaten woman. The prostitutes at the nightclub look human one moment and then monstrous the next, staring at him with feral, hungry eyes.
Hungry
5
eyes.
once referred to them as Rusalki, a type of beautiful monster similar to a siren. He thought she was speaking figuratively, but now he's not so sure. They head into the back rooms with men and come out an hour later.
They went into the back
satisfied,
rooms.
but the men never come back out.
Yikes.
While watching the pit fights, he says that there are things in the audience that aren't entirely human, and there are sounds he can't explain, like a heartbeat or roars, something from deep below where all the blood and corpses go. This was the last message received from the agent, who was declared missing in action 3 weeks later. After a lot of deliberation...
Yeah, I mean, like, again, and there's no real reference to this in anything, but I when I initially was learning of, like, sarcasm in this and the idea that Yaldabaoth is, like, this connection to the primal instincts, right? It almost felt like that aspect of Mother Nature of not forgetting where, like, you come from, you know, that we were once hunter-gatherers, and, you know, to remember and connect to that aspect of ourselves that, you know, that is a part of us. That's, you know, that, I guess that's really kind of where I was going with what I was trying to express earlier, right? Like, I you know, so I, like, I don't know. That's what my initial, like, thought was when I was first starting to kind of learn about Yaldabaoth, but, and maybe there was kind of an aspect of that earlier on in the earlier days of the SCP, but now it definitely feels like sarcasm is kind of more, like, evil and demonic. At least that's what it feels like, you know what I mean? Compared to, like, it feels like the Sarkics are more of the bad guys in general, and the Mechans are in general more of the good guys. Now, I'm sure there's definitely layers, you know, between both of them, where there are some, you know, factions, some radical factions of, you know, the Church of the Broken God that are very, you know, I guess not for how the world currently is, and would take radical measures to get to what they want and have no concern about harming people and others. Whereas I'm sure there are probably certain aspects of certain religious sects or whatever from the Sarkics that are a little more lenient and not quite so human sacrificey, etc. You know what I mean? So it's like the unfinished ritual literally starting to see through the veil. You can see this, the Sarkic creatures. Right.
It was decided that the Foundation would launch a series of raids against multiple Black Lodge sites, including the Red Lanterns nightclub. During the raids, the creatures described at the start underwent their physical transformations. Despite the Foundation expecting heavy casualties, they managed to neutralize the monsters with minimal loss, thanks to the use of incendiary armaments. It soon became apparent, though, that the Black Lodge had provided minimal manpower to defend, only a small fraction of their total population.
Interesting.
The raids resulted in the discovery of another anomaly, a megalithic temple complex located deep beneath Moscow. The Foundation has dated it as
I've always thought this art, when he brings it up, is pretty sick. Like all these people in torches going into these different like pyramids with this eldritch looking god of some sort coming out of the heavens. That's pretty. This is pretty dope. This definitely has a Sarkic feel to it too. It fits.
It has been at least 3,000 years old, making it the oldest standing structure in Russia. Its exterior is composed of black granite, but its interior is entirely organic, comprised of bone, muscle, and viscera. In front of the complex was a gladiatorial arena and a large altar, and hanging from the cavern's ceiling were the remains of 12 elderly women, each disemboweled and hanged via their own intestines.
Jesus.
This leads to the final anomaly, a humanoid organism located directly beneath the temple complex. The entity seems to be immobile and likely brain dead, and although it is genetically human, it displays a number of features that do not naturally occur among humans. It has a single eye located at the center of its face, a flat nasal slit rather than a protruding nose, tusks, horns, and various other corneous protrusions.
So I'm assuming they're getting their injection steroid juice from this creature. Guess I don't care much for the old ways anymore. I guess not.
3 rows of sharpened teeth with enlarged and heavily muscled jaws, and a partial exoskeleton, with both it and its internal skeleton being anomalously strong.
Interesting.
Its most notable trait, of course, though, is its size, with an estimated standing height of 300 meters, or nearly
Jeez.
1,000 feet, and a weight of 70,000 tons.
It's a kaiju, brother. Holy.
Based on the unusual length of its arms relative to the rest of its body, it
I would
likely
assume
moved
so.
similarly to a gorilla. Further DNA analysis and investigation has led to the hypothesis
They captured Kong and turned it into some kind of crazy Sarkic creature. Where's Godzilla when you need him?
that this entity achieved at least part of its unusual size through the absorption of potentially more than 100,000 other organisms. The entity is accessible via 3 distinct shafts, 2 of which are equipped with mechanical lifts, one leading to the entity's skull, the other to its groin. It's feared that the creation of more shafts would result in structural instability, potentially endangering a large area of Moscow. The 3rd shaft leads to the entity's stomach and is located directly below the arena, allowing blood and viscera to pass between the iron grates and provide sustenance to the entity. The bronze tips of over 3,000 arrows, harpoons, and spears belonging to a wide range of Eurasian cultures have been extracted from its body so far.
Interesting.
But an exact cause of its current disabled state has yet to be determined. Portions of its body appear to be undergoing slow decay, while other portions appear to be regenerating. It's believed that the anomalous drugs distributed by the Black Lodge came from certain organs of the entity's body, which were surgically removed and smuggled out of Moscow prior to the Foundation's raids. This means that the Black Lodge knew the raids were coming, thus leaving behind only a token resistance.
Right. I was going to say that's why there wasn't a whole lot of manpower there.
Their influence continues to expand, and the spread of their anomalous drugs continues to grow, with longtime addicts developing unusual physical traits such as leathery skin, skeletal protrusions, and various other mutations. The Foundation has ordered the capture and humane termination of all those afflicted, which will remain in effect until the drugs are properly contained. So, if 5 is to be believed, long ago there was a great Sarkic entity known as Orok, the Saint of War in the Sarkic faith. She says that he sacrificed himself here for the blood of gods and tyrants, although what exactly that means is left to our imagination.
Yeah.
He fell here, and a Sarkic settlement and temple
I wonder if his sacrifice may have been what, you know, could have killed the Davites, right? Like, let's listen to that again.
The Sarkic faith. She says that he sacrificed himself here for the blood of gods and tyrants.
The blood of gods and tyrants. And I mean, the Davites were all about blood magic and whatnot. So maybe like him sacrificing himself and injecting his blood into something, maybe it like corrupted the blood magic the Davites used or whatever, and like weakened them, allowing the Sarkics to, like, you know, get rid of them, etc. That'd be an interesting idea. Who knows? But I mean, yeah, I would assume that's something that we will never really truly know.
Although what exactly that means is left to our imagination. He fell here, and a Sarkic settlement and temple was built on top of him in order to continually provide blood sacrifice in order to regenerate him. The city of Moscow eventually grew out of this settlement.
Bro, he's the Sarkic Emperor, dude. They keep sacrificing people to him daily in blood instead of souls. All goes back to 40K, man.
Mostly forgetting its Sarkic roots. The Black Lodge, led by Yosava's father and the Great Mothers, re-established the blood sacrifice and the spread of Sarkic influence in Moscow and beyond. The Foundation has Orok contained now, so at least there will be no more blood sacrifice, but that's not stopping the Black Lodge from using various organs harvested from Orok to create some really trippy Sarkic drugs. The agent at
those drugs, that's actually, you know, how the Sarkics are making their Astartes. All it is.
One point describes Sarkicism as a disease with more carriers than they ever imagined, and the Foundation has an extremely tough time trying to actually contain it. It's a shame that the agent didn't make it out, but at least his efforts led to the containment of one of the most potentially powerful entities in Sarkicism.
No quote, feels bad, man. Interesting. All right, so that was SCP-2408 Oroks Fall by the Exploring series. So yeah, links will be down below as always in the description to the original video without my commentary and reaction, and to the Exploring series channel. So please do me a favor, if you enjoyed this as we went through it, be sure to go over there and give this video of his a like, and hit that sub button on the Exploring series channel. Show the man some love. So, I mean, the overall gist of the story is Orok was some kind of demigod, potentially, that is either some kind of creature or demigod of some sort, sacrificed himself for reasons unknown, and is essentially his remains are there, and the Sarkics built the temple and are essentially, you know, doing rituals and sacrificing people to keep Orok alive in some way. You know, maybe, I mean, you like it's interesting, right? Like, he sacrificed himself in some way. Maybe he sealed or contained some kind of Davite deity of some sort, right? Now, the only Davite deity that I know of is the Scarlet King, right? Like, there was some kind of ritual that, you know, happened, although from what I understand, it's the Davites that did this to free themselves from Scarlet King, but maybe this entity was part of that ritual of some sort. Who knows? That's just a stretch, you know, from what my brain is trying to make connections with here, but you know, who knows? But so yeah, it's some kind of creature that sacrificed himself for some reason that is unknown to us. The Sarkics built the temple around him, or, you know, continuously giving human sacrifices to keep it alive, and apparently this Black Lodge and maybe other Sarkics have discovered that they can essentially create some kind of enhanced, augmented people from, you know, extracting drugs from different organs and they're using that to their advantage. So thinking mutated demigod, maybe the brother Cage with no face is trying to do the same process of pain and blood. Potentially, could have been, or he could have just been like, that's how he showed his reverence and service to Orok, kind of a thing, you know, by trying to imitate him or trying to connect to him further, you know, something like that. Who knows? But very interesting tale. Interesting tale. One that, again, I would like to know more about, as the Sarkics and the Sarkic Davite and you know, Mechans are some of the most interesting stuff to me in the 40k universe. So if Red Tape is in fact a storyline that has to do more about them, I'm looking forward to getting into that. So but yeah, like I said, that was SCP-2408 by the Exploring Series Oroks Fall. Links down below. Check out his channel, give him a like, sub, all that kind of stuff. Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed this video of mine, consider giving it a like and a sub. It helps me and the channel grow. If you'd like to join us when I do these reactions live, as I'm doing right now with my YouTube members, we'd love to have you guys come and join our conversations, add your 2 cents. There is a join button underneath the video, as well as the link in the description. The YouTube membership benefits and tiers that I offer. You get early access to videos, priority in any kind of reaction requests, etc., etc. So yeah, take a look at those if you've been around the channel for a while. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Hope you're having yourselves a wonderful day. We'll see you guys in the next one.